Folks, we got a red dot. Welcome back to Akron's hottest and fastest growing show, 3 Throw to Go. I'm your host, Hank Forrester, coming to you live from 3 Throw to Go basement man cave headquarters, which is now the safe way to do everything that we do. And I'm joined by Matt from the Happy Camper Bar Car. Everybody say hi to Matt, 3 Throw. Matt, say hi to everybody.
Hi, nice to meet you all.
All right, so as you can see, I've been very productive today. I've been folding laundry. You know,
have laundry in the background.
Anything that you get done is a bonus. It's like, hey, I got my laundry done. I got my cooking done. I actually showered. I got the kids taught. You know what I mean? It's just we're in such a weird time right now in this America of ours. All right. So first of all, I want to do a special shout out. Misty just tuned in. She's watching. If you can see, Misty was so kind, and she donated 3 Throw to Go shirts to our cause, and it was to help to offset some costs. So we're selling some shirts to try and get Danny some money, and we're also giving away the shirts to some of our top fans as well. So I think she's watching right now. She's from Sackman Stamp. Okay. So she's the owner of Sackman Stamp. So Misty, thank you if you're out there, and you're our shirt lady for life. Okay. So that's it. We're good to go there. All right. So Matt, the first question I always ask everybody whenever I have them on the show is, tell me your 330 story. Tell me your Akron story.
Man, I was born in Firestone Park, grew up there. Went to Roswell Kent Middle School, St. V for high school, Boris Elementary. I escaped for a little bit and then ended up back here. And so I've been here all but 2 of my 40 years.
Hold on, time out. So you went to St. V?
Yeah.
How did I not know that? And since I'm a Hoban grad, how are we even allowed to have this? Like, so wait, now hold on. I'm doing the math.
Do it.
If you're 40,
I graduated in 98, so like right before LeBron started.
I was gonna say you were right in that time frame, right?
Yeah, I think they won 3 games the whole 4 years I was there, and then a year later they were in the national champions.
And then Drew Joyce Sr. happened. Got it. All right. So tell us, first of all, tell us about the Happy Camper Bar Car, and sure. Obviously you've been involved in other business adventures and other things throughout Akron. Tell us your story about in regards to that.
Yeah, so the Happy Camper Bar Car, we're kind of like a mobile craft cocktail bar. We have a 1972 Airstream that you've seen. It's like a food truck for cocktails. We do a lot of weddings, street festivals. We focus on like craft cocktails. So we bring a high-end cocktail bar to an outdoor location, like to a backyard, a barn wedding, a street festival, that kind of stuff. And we're also getting ready to launch our cocktails in cans, so you'll be able to get a full cocktail just ready to drink.
And full transparency, you and I have worked together before. That's how we met. You were at the Gish Barn, which we love the Gish. You know, I've DJ'd there many times. You're one of their preferred vendors as well.
Right.
What's interesting about what you offer, and again, we went over this at Taste of Akron. Your car, you pre-mix your drinks and you have like specialties. So why don't you talk us through that real quick?
We do. Yeah. We do all of our drinks on draft, which I started 5 years ago. And that was back when it was very uncommon for bars to do cocktails on draft, but it was just a function of, I'm out there at a wedding. I have to serve 200 people in an hour, sometimes more. I don't have enough water for washing dishes properly and keeping things sanitary. So I came up with really unique ways to make actual craft cocktails, but in a keg, so we could serve them really fast.
Okay.
That's what we do. And that's really kind of helped me transition into doing the cocktails in a can, because keg is really just a big can. So.
One of our 330 to Go network affiliate members just asked a question, and he said, it's Jerry Shin. So Jerry runs our Welcome to Akron podcast. He said, hey, Matt, are you still playing poker? What is that? What does that mean?
I played poker for a living for almost 7 years. I dropped out of school, which my parents loved, when I was 20. I was actually going to the University of Akron, so I went to college in 3302 for physics, and dropped out of poker, and I did that for almost 7 years. So that's, I don't play gambling. So it if you're only playing poker a small amount, it's gambling. And so, no, I haven't played it. Looks like
You there?
Yeah. Are you back?
Okay, so I love that happened. You know why? Because that's showing the strain that we're now experiencing right now on the internet in general.
Yeah.
Just the whole grid. Okay, so kid one is right now doing like online classroom lessons. Wife is monitoring Stark State University in a room, and then I'm doing this and streaming, and it's like, and then whoever knows what the boys probably watching like Netflix or something. But the point is, for the first time ever and let me turn that off. Maybe that'll help. Let me turn the TV off. For the first time ever in many, many years, the entire grid is completely strained and being used at the same time by everybody. Okay. So let's go back. You were right finishing up about St. V playing poker. So what's a poker story?
Yeah, so I was going to school at Akron U for physics, and I dropped out to play poker for a living because I had been playing just kind of at local Vegas nights for a couple years, and then online poker really took off. So I did that for about 6 or 7 years. Eventually got tired of it and moved on, but I was saying I don't really play poker anymore because poker is gambling. It's going to sound crazy. I don't like gambling. So if you play poker once, the best poker players in the world only win about 55% of the time. So
did you meet all the big clowns?
Yeah.
Like Phil Hellmuth and
yeah,
all those Nigian, how do you say his name?
Daniel Negreanu.
Yeah, and Negreanu, right? Yeah, all those guys, right? So we all watch it. That's great. How many times, just out of curiosity, how many times were you in the main event?
I played in the main event for like 4 years, I think. So
okay,
I was more of a cash game player, but I would follow the tournaments around because that's where the best cash games were too.
Okay, very cool. All right, so let's talk virus, right? I mean, you and I mean, it's funny. We're not going to go over my personal Facebook history right now because that's a comedy. That's a comedy of errors, and I don't want to get into that. But you and I kind of, we've known each other for a couple of years now, but at the same time, we both kind of connected when this whole virus thing started to happen. All right. What was the first time where you kind of put up a red flag and you said, something's kind of wrong?
Wow, that's a good question. I think it was when I have some friends who get things manufactured in China, some of them in the city of Wuhan in the Hubei province, and everything closed down there. And that would have been like early February, I think, when my friend was telling me that she couldn't get her stuff shipped from there anymore. And I was just kind of looking around and reading. So this is going to sound nuts and like kind of crazy, but what I did after poker was I had a software company that made Facebook games in the early days of the Facebook platform. So I don't know if you remember, you used to get all those Farmville invites and crap like that. That's what we did. And the way you measured your traffic was the same way that virologists measure the spread of viruses. Like everybody knows what an R0 value is now, but we used to hire companies to do analytics, and the companies were run by epidemiologists who would teach you, because in Facebook, one friend invites 5 friends, and then let's say 30% of those friends actually play your game. So they're inviting 1.5 friends. That's your R0 value. And so I started reading a little bit about the virus, and I just was like, okay, this thing spreads very well. It's hard to stop. It's particularly tricky because at that point they were just kind of thinking that you could spread it before you were symptomatic. And it looked like the perfect storm. And so, I started posting about that. You were posting about that too, and we kind of connected over that. But yeah, that's when it was apparent that it was going to come here. Wasn't really apparent at all what was going to happen, but just that we were going to get it, right? That the toothpaste was out of the tube and you couldn't stop it anymore.
For me, it was that first week of February, and it was right around the time of the Super Bowl. And most of it was because I mean, you've seen what I've done with 330 and from a news standpoint, how we've tried to keep people informed, right?
Right.
So I've been paying attention regularly every day on Twitter to anything and everything that breathes, because my goal is to find information for people that is relevant to here. Okay. The problem in doing that at the time was I started seeing all of these videos coming out of China. And I'm like, and it was whatever would be allowed to be let out, right? I remember it was right the week of the Super Bowl, and I saw a video of people being welded into their apartments. There were government groups that were going around with a tack welder, and they were welding the doors shut. And that was going into quarantine. Okay. Yeah. And I thought to myself, okay, this is the real deal. At that point, right around then, you had posted a video from Mike Levasseur, who is out of Drexel University. He's an I can never say it right, epidemiologist. And I watched it, and it was great info, and it was very deliberate. But what he said in that video was, this isn't the flu. This is SARS-2. This is how it originates. This is where it came from, and all this stuff. So at that point, I'm going, okay. And that's when I kind of like started throwing up flares to my friends and family. Hey, this isn't the flu. Hey, this isn't the flu. Hey, guys, we probably should start getting ready. Hey, let's start paying attention to what's going on in China. All right. Yeah. And again, at the time, I'm watching these people, and they're being like regimed, right? And I'm thinking in my head, if this comes to America, we don't do that.
Right.
I use the term, we are ignorantly arrogant. It's not like it's not our fault, but it kind of is. But we have this thought process where we're better than everybody, we're Americans, our thought process is better. Our immune systems are better. Our health system's better, all this stuff. And I'm thinking, a virus in the back of my head. My sister is, I know I've shared this with a lot of people in my community. My sister is a head of trauma. She's an ER surgeon, right? And I'm thinking to myself, viruses don't care.
Right.
You're a human being. They have one job on Earth, and that is
they're very good at it.
Make more of themselves. That's what they do, right? Yeah. So that's when I got nervous, is the first week of February. And then I started throwing up flares, and some people liked the updates I was giving. I got a lot of pushback. You probably did too, right?
Yeah.
So did you let people like talk it out, or did you just delete and remove?
I have a policy. I have no problem with people disagreeing with me. I do have a problem with people being rude. So if people are rude, I just unfriend them, because we don't have to be Facebook friends. Even if they're close friends in real life, we can just be friends in real life. That's fine.
Sure.
So, lots of people would say, why is this different than the flu? And I would just try to explain the numbers, and I don't know if they understood it or just shut up, but they usually made it go away, like, okay, here it's twice as viral as the flu. It's got a mortality rate of at least 5 times as the flu. It's 15 flus. It's not one flu,
Yeah.
And most people can get it when you show them the numbers, but not everyone.
There was still, and it baffled my existence. There was still this huge chunk of people that not only would disagree with that, but they would push back and say you're crazy. Right. And I just didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
I mean, we basically went through all of February not knowing what to do with those people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to keep politics out of this discussion, like how the administration has handled it or not. But sure, if we just focus on Uncle Mike and Aunt Amy, I think they've done a tremendous job pushing things back.
Amazing. I mean, they canceled the Arnold Classic in early March when this was still a thing that, our national leadership was saying, it's going to go away anytime. Like they knew it. And kudos to Mike DeWine, because, he listened to probably Dr. Acton and whoever else. He actually listened, and it had to be very brave for him to take the actions that he took.
And
Especially,
it's funny because I'm related to the guy.
oh,
Okay.
really?
So my wife grew up in Yellow Springs, Ohio, home of Dave Chappelle, and also the home of the Dylans and Mike DeWine, right? So my father-in-law is Mike's cousin. Okay.
Oh, cool.
So they grew up they grew up in the same area, but then they ended up setting up shop on the same street. So
Mhm.
literally on East Yellow Springs Fairfield Road, that's where the DeWine property is, and DeWine's Pond.
Hmm.
So my children grew up, every time we would visit, we would go to Young's Jersey Dairy to get
Mhm.
the ice cream, and then we would go feed the ducks at DeWine's Pond.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I guess, what does that make me? His second cousin-in-law, I think. I don't
Wow.
know.
Yeah. I don't know.
So yeah, I've been vehemently defending him with everyone, and not just. And it's funny
Right.
because I've voted against him every election cycle,
Yeah. I did too. I did too.
and it's mostly been to be the dude needs time off. I'm like, he's been a career politician. I'm like, give him a term off. Just
Yeah.
he's got 8 kids and 24 grandkids. I'm like, chill out, dude. Just enjoy life for like 2 years and then come back, you know?
I'm glad he didn't listen because he's doing a hell of a job. So,
I know. So that brings us to the next question, right? So
yeah.
how do you see this affecting like the 330 and the Akron and Canton community?
Oh man, it's tough out there. You know, I mean, you probably know more than me about this because didn't you say your wife and daughter work at Acme? But the grocery situation is rough. I mean, they're heroes over there. They're doing a great job, I think, but it's tough. I mean, I'm having a hard time. You know, I'm trying to get some cocktails out the door, like cocktail mixes and stuff, and just getting ingredients is tough. Um, it's just I don't know. I gotta say though, like I have friends who live in New York City, and I have friends who live in Vegas and other places, and I think we're doing better than most places. You know.
Are you in a position right now where your cans can be distributed to different where can they go? Can they go to grocery stores and restaurants and stuff?
It will be, yeah. So I'm working on that. So there's a lot of challenges in the alcohol industry right now. Number one, people are drinking 2, 3 times as much as they ever did before because they don't have to go to work in the morning. So all my friends who work at distributors, they're swamped. They can't keep up. They're just shipping truck after truck after truck. My friend who works at a liquor store hasn't had a day off in like 4 weeks.
I
Um,
mean, and that's equal parts good and sad, right? Because
yeah, it's good to know somebody's winning, right? Like somebody's benefiting from
well,
this.
and I said when this first happened and I knew it was coming, I'm like, let's focus on not all becoming fat alcoholics
Oh yeah,
because that's a significant depressed is halfway suicidal fat alcoholics, right? Because you're
I get that. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? You're stuck in your house. You should be. If you're
right.
not, you should be. And then it's like, what do you do to cope? Some people do yoga. Some people do the tantric stuff. Some people
Yeah,
do, meditation, all that, right? Other people drink. Other people, some people work out. But at the end of the day, everybody needs that vice. And in this scenario, you're in the industry of providing that vice.
right, right. Yeah, so alcohol sales are way up, which makes working with distributors tougher. The like every distillery around the country is pumping out hand sanitizer now because of the severely increased hand sanitizer demand. So in normal years, beverage alcohol sells for a whole lot more than industrial alcohol, but right now that's kind of inverted. So everybody's making just hand sanitizer around the clock, which kind of hurts on the supply side. Even my co-packer, they own a distillery, they're making hand sanitizer too. So slotting in the production, I'm using actual liquor in my cocktails on like a White Claw or something. So that's getting to be difficult. Little things like when you take a packaged food product to market, you have to get what's called a process authority to basically like review it for food safety. Those are all done by universities. Universities are all closed, and there are private ones, but they're super expensive and they're slow. So it's just one challenge after another because of this. But what you got to do, what you got to do, I guess.
Well, and that's interesting because I mean, us common folk would never think of all that, right?
Right.
So I heard the whole breweries and distillers switching to making sanitizer.
Yeah.
Well, explain that to us, because
Yeah.
number one, I heard that it just kind of cleans out their stuff. They got to do it anyway. And number two, it's an easy switch. How does that
Yeah.
work?
Hand sanitizer, I actually looked up the World Health Organization recipe, and I have the stuff to make it. I've been meaning to. It's mostly just glycerin, alcohol, and hydrogen peroxide. So they're just making, just like you would vodka, except the stuff that you make, that industrial alcohol, is much easier and cheaper and faster to make. So they're doing, normal vodka, you get some high quality grains, high quality yeast. You ferment it relatively slowly so that the yeast don't spit off a bunch of off byproducts. Then you distill it 6 times and run it through a charcoal filter, and then you're selling it for like $2 a gallon wholesale. Now what they do is they get whatever crap like corn or whatever's cheap, or even sugar. They get yeast that ferments very fast and hard, but would taste gross if you drank it. They run it through the still just enough to get it up to 190 proof, and then they're done. So it's selling for $10 a gallon instead of $2, or whatever. I don't know what the exact price is, but it's more. So even still, for the small distilleries, their systems they still have a lot higher labor costs. So for them, they're probably honestly still doing this more as a public service than as a profit center. But the mega distilleries, they're fully automated. I don't know if you've ever been to Kentucky, like go to one of the cool distilleries. They're just fully automated. I mean, they have a truck that pulls up, they dump the grain through a grate, then it pulls up more and gets spent grain, then it goes off to cattle, and just from there it's automated, So
Yeah,
they're able to, what is normally an expensive process is cheaper when you're making industrial alcohol, and is now selling for more. So yeah, I mean, I would not be surprised if you see a little bit less of the distilled spirits that you're normally drinking in the not too distant future,
Yeah, and I mean, so I have a very good working relationship with Acme, and specifically, you and I are both in the neighborhood. I'm right by Acme #1.
Of 3 houses away.
Yeah, so that's where I get a lot of my information from. So I know the wine lady. I'm actually going to be DJing her wedding. Hopefully, we'll get to that topic soon.
What month? Yeah.
I think it's in July or August. Okay. So head wine lady, I know her, and then I know the liquor guys, and I know the beer guys. The point is, I get a lot of my tips and information from them. And that's how I found out that Mexico was getting ready to shut down all their production on both beer and liquor. So all right, so let's segue into that, and that's one of our main topics tonight, and that is the wedding and events industry. Okay. Now, for the last 2 years, Three Throw to Go was founded on the entire principle of events and fun and festivals and football, and that's sports. Right. And that's what we were born on. And in this scenario, we're dealing with, for the last 2 years, I've had food trucks in my front yard to start the food truck season. First week of April, I had, Funky Truckeria, Square Scullery, Twist of Leona. The following year, it was the Rib Factory, Charlie with Stray Dog, and then also the Johnny Lotes, right? Which Johnny Lotes, God bless them, they had a fantastic first year, to the point where they pitched themselves to the Rubber Ducks, and the Rubber Ducks took them on to be a part of the food on the Rubber Duck. What the hell do you call that? The ring of food.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're really deeply rooted with the food truck industry, and especially, with the Taste of Akron and, Hardesty Park's in my backyard.
Right.
What now?
Yeah.
Go.
You want my guess?
Talk.
My guess is there are going to be, dining in is not going to be a thing that really happens until, if we're lucky, fall. There's going to be no baseball. There's going to be maybe there will be football this year, maybe. And here's my logic. The when DeWine shut down the Arnold Classic, that was in early March, so just over a month ago, just literally, I think like a month and 2 days ago. And at that point, it was still pretty small, right? And we've had, so what, 5, 6 weeks since then of our graph just going up and up. And the graph's going to go down because of all the isolation we're doing, but it's going to go down a lot slower than it came up. And they're expecting that graph to peak in like late May, early June, if you ask the Cleveland Clinic now. So it's going to be this 3 or 4 month buildup, and then going down is going to be even slower because this thing was doubling every 2-3 days. It's not going to have every 2 or 3 days. You know, our R0 value of 3 isn't going to go down to 1/3 from all this distancing. We still have nurses out there. We have people working in grocery stores and food prep, and there's, you know, still a good portion of people are out there in the public working, and this thing is not going to die as fast as it grew. So I don't, short of some miracle, like some miracle drug that just reduces the mortality and hospitalization rate to something we're willing to accept, or some freakishly fast vaccine that's a year faster than anyone thinks is going to happen. And I don't think that's going to happen because the first trials are slated for September, right? I don't think big public events, I don't think people being in groups together in public are a thing that's going to happen this year. I think that all my weddings are going to end up rescheduling. I hope I'm wrong. And I'm praying I'm wrong. You know, I've already lost all my May and June weddings. A lot of the July ones have rescheduled. I have a couple July ones hanging in there, but I don't know. I'm hoping, I could be wrong. It's possible we'd be able to do events again in August, September. I hope, but I'm not holding my breath.
Well, and so when I look at mine, right? So I had a very strange booking year, and for those of you that know me or don't know me or whatever, if you're new to Three Throw to Go, I own His and Hers Wedding and Party Service. It's me and the wife. We're a mom and pop shop, and we do anywhere between 20 to 40 weddings a year, depending on what year it is, and depending on the cost and, you know, kid stuff, right? So this year was a very strange booking year for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like God said, hey, Hank, I'm not going to have you in this crisis moment. I'm not going to book it. I can't even explain it, but I had one wedding in February, which I completed.
Mm-hmm.
I had nothing in March. And then I had 3 or 4 like corporate events in April. So they weren't like the kind that I had gotten a deposit on yet.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a party here, a party there, a reunion here, you know, that kind of stuff. So point being, I didn't have to do any kind of refunds or anything like that for April. I got one bride right now in May that's holding pat, and she's waiting because hers is an outdoor at a park, right? and I'm like, God bless you, but I've got dates ready for her.
Right.
I talked to all of my June brides today. So one, luckily, again, as fate would have it, the one is one of my Norwalk brides, and they own the barn. So it's like the place is at their parents' barn, which is gorgeous and amazing. But all they have to do is move the DJ, the flowers, and the food. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the church too, right? Just book the church.
Right.
And then the second one is at the Sheridan Suites. She's at the end of June, but she's already got a couple of dates that are picked out toward fall. So I'm good all the way up to July. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And again, based on what you said, hoping on a miracle, right? And it's not necessarily a miracle, but if they get to the end of June and that curve is coming down and sloping down, hoping that at that point through July, that DeWine would go and release those sanctions.
Yeah, and I think that what's going to happen is they're going to release some and see what happens, and then release some more and see what happens, because they still, you know, with exponential growth, if you just release all the sanctions, the curve is going to unflatten very quick, and the hospitals are going to be right back to where they are now in like a week, you know? So I think what they're going to try to do is get it down low, try to get the whole test and trace thing going on. And I don't know a whole lot about how much we're doing to ramp up testing. I know we're like an order of magnitude or 2 away from where we need to be on that now, but I don't know how fast that's being solved. And the idea being that we'll open up some restrictions, do test and trace, see how it goes. If it works, open up some more, rinse, repeat. Because we got to keep this thing from growing exponentially. If it's growing exponentially, the hospital system gets overwhelmed. People start dying that don't have to die.
Well, and the term I've used from the very beginning to help people understand this better was that this is an unchecked deadly virus loose in the wild.
Yeah.
And people called me a fearmonger, and people said you're crazy and you don't know what you're talking about. And they're like, look at what happened with Ebola. I'm like, Ebola,
yeah,
emulsifies a person in like 3 days. Like we shut that shit down. It was like, oh my God, boom, mass sanctions, stop it now, right? And everyone was willing to do that, okay? And then with H1N1, again, I keep coming back to this with people, and no one understands when I say this, but my family has had just about every flu that you can have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tried to explain to people. I'm like, when you're talking about the flu, you're talking about all these various strains and different types. So you got the stomach flu, and you got this flu, and you got that flu, and flu. Point being, my kids cycle it in and out. We have we get our flu shots, we do whatever. And the flu shot, people don't realize, is based on the strain they think is going to be the worst that year. Right.
Yeah. They're guessing.
So point being, you watch your timeline on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and all these people end up getting the flu. 99% of them recover from the flu.
Mm-hmm.
I know somebody that I know a couple kids that have died from the flu, and I know one that was severely affected that actually was on our show that recovered with Ryan out of Firestone. But besides that, when I look at the flu, when people pass away or whatever from the flu, and I'm not downplaying it, but it's complications from the flu.
Yeah.
And go ahead and expand on that.
Yeah, I mean, it does happen. The flu does kill people. It kills about 0.1% of people.
100%.
And that's terrible. I mean, it's awful. It's, we do everything we can for it. Our entire medical system's capacity is basically built around bad flu season, we give away free flu shots. It's a terrible disease. I'm not downplaying it,
and I didn't mean to either.
I know you didn't. Yeah. But this disease is, we don't know the exact mortality rate. If you look up the World Health Organization estimate, it's something like 3%, but that's based on confirmed cases. And a lot of the places, like unfortunately America right now, we're only testing people when they're hospitalized, right? You have to be like 5 minutes before getting the tube shoved down your throat on the ventilator before they'll actually test you anymore. So that's what's called a severity bias. We're only testing the people who have the most severe reactions to it. So of course they have a higher death rate than all the people. There's a good amount of people who are getting this disease and being asymptomatic or mildly symptomatic, and they never get tested, and we don't know about it. So we don't know the denominator, but in places where they are doing really wide tests, like South Korea and Germany, where they're doing test and trace, and they're testing a lot of people who aren't going to the hospital, it's looking like 0.5, 0.6 maybe %. So still 5 to 6 times as deadly as the flu, like just in terms of death. And then the hospitalization rate is much higher too. So we have to worry about, like, our hospital system gets overwhelmed, and then people who don't have to die no longer have access to a ventilator, like what's going on in Italy, or people who have a heart attack, they can't get a bed because the ICU is full. So you get secondary effects like that. So yeah, it's mathematically substantially worse than the flu.
Well, and I have some personal, I shouldn't get into it because my mom will punch me in the face, but I know people, I'll say it this way. I know people close to me that have had surgeries canceled because,
right,
they were told, you've got time, these people won't, right? And exactly. It's like, my next question is, why do you think that they didn't call this SARS-2 from the beginning? You think it was just a media thing or a fear?
Yeah, I don't know. That might be a better question for Michael. That's a good question.
Because that's what it's called. It's SARS-2, COVID-19, which COVID is the way it's described is SARS-2 is the virus and COVID-19 is the disease.
Right.
Okay. So it's like, I'm not smart enough to understand that.
Yeah, I don't know how they name that stuff, but yeah, this one, the virus is SARS-CoV-2. I know epidemiologists now call the original SARS SARS Classic, which is kind of funny in a sick
like
way.
like a Macintosh.
Yeah, let's go
Oh
for the
man.
blood, I guess. But
All
um,
right. All right. So
yeah, but no,
that's
it's a tricky virus. It's I think the fact that it can spread while asymptomatic is what makes it so tricky, you know. Because you can do things like you can take people's temperature, but people are they're most likely to spread it probably before they even get a fever. So what do you do?
because it's sitting there for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
2 weeks.
yeah,
Two.
up to 2 weeks down.
So just an update for the whole network. I think everyone knows that we have been delivering to a patient. We've been delivering food because she's been out of work, and they're an in need family, and she got admitted. I don't know if I ever put that publicly on the network, but she was admitted 2 days ago.
Mm.
So she's now in one of the local Akron hospitals and getting treatment.
How's she doing?
She's been on a ventilator, so
Yeah,
she texts me every once in a while and says, "Hey, I'm okay." So
yeah,
we've been tracking her story. I interviewed her about I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and just to give that gives you the scope.
right.
She's been dealing with this for
Mhm.
weeks, and that's the difference between that and the flu.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
flu, you get the flu, it's done in 4 or 5 days, you're good.
most of the time, yeah.
So yeah. All right, closing thoughts. What would you like to say to other vendors out there, other food trucks, other industry people? What are your words of encouragement to them?
Yeah, man, just hang in there. Try to think outside the box about what you can do in the meantime because this might go on a real long time. I mean, I know everybody has been very Pollyanna-ish from the beginning, like, oh, this won't get here, it'll get here, it won't be that bad, yada yada. And now everybody's like, oh, it's okay, we'll have restaurants open in a couple months. And I'm talking to all my friends who have restaurants and bars, and I'm like, make a plan for if this thing goes to next year, like make make
Go on.
sorry.
Homeschooling, man.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah. Make a plan. Come up with something else you can do. Like I'm starting to deliver cocktail mixes because gives me something to do. Maybe it'll make a little money. People can drink. I don't know. Like I have a lot of friends who own bars and restaurants and they're trying to keep paying their employees. And I'm like, that's great. That's awesome. But just be aware that this might go on until next year. We don't know when it'll stop.
Should we even discuss the SBA loan thing or just let that go right now?
I'm still learning about that. So you can tell me about it. I've applied for them, but that's about as far as I've gotten.
We are the vintage people that fall through the
Yeah.
cracks, and it's
Yeah.
like so you got the unemployment, and then at the same time they added gig laborers, but what does that mean?
Right.
And then on top of that, it's we all are small business owners, and but we don't have employees. You and I are the perfect example.
Right.
It's me and my wife. I mean, I guess we could be the employees and we pay ourselves. I don't know how that works,
You can, I believe. Yeah. I don't know how it works either, but I believe that's possible. Yeah.
but that's what this comes down to. You take that loan out, and as you're paying your employees, they're forgiving the loan.
Right.
But what if you're not? Then if you don't, then at the end of it, you got a loan.
Right. Right. And for me, like all my employees are seasonal 1099s. I don't have like year-round full-term employees. So I need to figure out with my bank how do I get in. From what I understand, the banks aren't getting a whole lot of guidance from the SBA either. So they're just as confused as we are right now, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, man, I really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining me.
Thanks for having me. It's fun.
And yeah, and again, everybody, just reaching out to the community. Hashtag in this together, Ohio. Right. That's what it's all about. We'll just kind of figure it out as we go. Yes, you guys know my wife and daughter both work at Acme Number One. They are essential, and right now they are essential. Okay. So stay away from them if you see them. In the meantime, guys, I don't know where I'm going, but there ain't no sense of being late. Everybody out there, and Matt, say goodnight, Shirley.
Good night, Shirley.